In a programme postponed last autumn, Pam Rhodes invites you to join her for Songs of Praise.
Round the pubs on a Saturday night, out on the streets at Christmas time, or perhaps the only friendly face in a hostile world. We're always glad to see the Salvation Army, and we join them for today's Songs of Praise from their Fellowship Week in Skegness. One of the nearest neighbours of St Paul's Cathedral in the City of London is this building, the International Headquarters building of the Salvation Army, where they coordinate the work of nearly 20,000 community, evangelistic and social services centres all over the world. And in fact, it was just a few miles from here, in the East End of London, that nearly 130 years ago, William Booth first established the Salvation Army, which has gone on to become the largest voluntary work agency in the world, and certainly one of the most familiar and active Christian movements anywhere. Bearing in mind the serious nature of their work and their concerns, it's easy to imagine that Salvationists must be dull and dour. Well, you wouldn't think that for a minute the moment you meet the thousands of them who are here at Butlin's Fun Coast World in Skegness for their annual Fellowship Week. We're here to join in their fun and their relaxation and, of course, their worship. And we start with a hymn which is well known to Christians everywhere, Thine is the Glory. It's not just officers who've left their uniforms and their bonnets behind to come to Skegness on this holiday week. Church members and people who've been on the receiving end of the Army's social services work are here too.
We're from Chelsea, and we've brought a group whose ages range from 5 to 80, 81, yeah. We have a job to keep tabs on them in a place like this because they're all over the place.
I think we get out of it more than we put in it from the people that come here on holiday. I feel I receive more than I give.
It's a wonderful atmosphere, really. Everybody's away from home. They're all here on holiday. And even those of us who are working on a team, it's a wonderful atmosphere that just keeps building all the time.
Time and time again in the Salvation Army, you'll hear people saying, why should the devil have all the best tunes? And certainly everyone here is out to prove that the Salvation Army has done its bit to provide some marvellous tunes for people to express their faith. Now, in this theatre, which is packed full for 2 sessions every night this week, we're just about to sing the Army's own version of an old favourite, To God Be the Glory. One group here at Skegness comes from the Salvation Army hostel in Ipswich. That's where Freddie Thurkettle has found support as he tries to establish a new way of life.
I was addicted to alcohol and drugs. My situation was I was on a roundabout and I couldn't get off. I was physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, financially bankrupt. Everything was so false. There was no way out, and until I actually got the courage up to actually ask for help, and I had help doing that.
What impression did you have of hostel life before you went there yourself?
I always said that I would never ever end up in the Salvation Army hostel.
Why?
There was just some stigma about the place. But I found it out to be wrong, completely wrong. It's a bridge to getting back out into the world and living what one would call a normal life.
In what ways has the Salvation Army helped?
They've been there for me. If I need them for a problem, I need to talk to somebody. They're just there, unconditionally.
officers spend 2 years at the Salvation Army's training college at Denmark Hill in South London.
We've worked very hard over the last few years to clarify our aim and objectives in training. In the old days, people used to say, what do you want to do? And we used to say, we want to produce blood and fire officers, which is this sort of great phrase to describe the enthusiasm and the evangelism of the Salvation Army. But then you have to go on to say, okay, we want blood and fire officers, but what does that really mean? We need people with strong spiritual convictions, because they're going into a spiritual job in a materialistic world, so they must be spiritual people.
You know the grace of the Lord Jesus.
Among the new intake of cadets are Tracy Bearcroft and Stuart Grinstead.
I believe God has placed in my heart a burning desire to serve him as a Salvation Army officer, and that's what's inevitable, that you should follow God's leading in your life.
Before I came here, I was an opera singer and I worked at English National Opera as a soloist, but it was about 3 years ago that the seed was planted to think about officership, and it took those 3 years to realise that this is the way God wanted me to go.
The Salvation Army is steeped in tradition, but of course cadets here at the moment are the future of the Army. How would you like to see that future developing?
I want to see more and more people hearing the gospel, and I believe the opportunity for me and for indeed the other cadets of the training college is to go and find those people and live with those people and share the gospel with them, just as Jesus did when he lived on this earth.
I'd like to see more people getting closer to God, really. Coming to know the gospel and coming to know that Jesus has something to offer for everyone. Not just people who wear uniforms, not people in any church, but for everyone. If we can get out and spread the message that the gospel is relevant today, then I think we'd be really doing God's work.